people from overseas dilutes our national identity. Survey data reveals migrants integrate well into the New Zealand. 87% of migrants say they feel they belong to New Zealand and exhibit relatively high mental and physical health and life satisfaction. Immigration policies are unlikely to fix the housing crisis. What migrants we blame for? New Zealand's distant from global market. We need migrants who can pitch in. Despite anti-immigration arguments grounded in economic effects, economic theory suggests free movement of labor allows people to work in sectors where their skills are most in demand. Fears of negative labor impacts are overblown. Wealth of empirical research disputes that the notion that immigrants steal jobs from native-born workers. Likewise, the net effect of immigration on wages is generally negligible. New Zealand is a wonderful place to live, partly because migrants have made it a more vibrant and interesting country. Let's keep the gates open and harness the contribution migrants can make. New Zealand's aging population will present many challenges. Future policymakers. Last couple of slides. New Zealanders, why migrants make good Kiwis. This slide really sums it up. And this is from Statistics New Zealand. Migrants come here, contribute to our economy, and most importantly, become part of our community. We welcome Erica's initiative to debate New Zealand's current immigration policy. We hope her optimistic and positive message of migration gets heard and current government realizes the impact on us all as a society. We're going to start from here. There is plenty to be done. This is a precursor to public meetings we will host. Till we don't get a change, I can tell you one thing. Our team has decided we are not going to stop. We will not stop till we have what is rightly a place for migrants, stuck offshore people to come back into New Zealand. If we are not able to achieve that, right, I think we've failed as a New Zealanders. Yeah. Thank you for being here, the one who have just come in. Very quickly, in terms of the washrooms are to the left, and should there be any emergencies, we are to assemble outside. Now I'll pass it on to Erica from here on, and most importantly, if you have any questions, we will have a question answer after about 30 minutes, so each and everyone who has a question will be. So thank you for listening.
Thank you. All right, hello everyone. Thank you so much for having me, the Punjabi Association, and also Radio Spice for hosting this afternoon. Can I just firstly acknowledge my colleague Simeon Brown, the MP for Pakuranga, who's here today, and also my former colleague Kanwal Bakshi, and very dear friend, who's also here today. It's a nice introduction as a lioness. Can I just say I don't always stand up in Parliament ready to yell and scream at them. It's just that I can't help it. Because I spend a lot of time at places like this and out in the community talking to migrants who tell me such stories of heartache that it's hard not to sort of stand up in Parliament and have a bit of a go at the Minister, because I think that he is doing a pretty appalling job on a number of fronts, which I'll go into. But just quickly, and some of you may have seen because it was live streamed, the meeting I did in Hamilton, where I said I was very pleased to get the immigration portfolio because I am, like so many others, the daughter of a migrant who came to New Zealand in 1953 on a boat from Holland. And so I have the stories of my ancestors and their travels here and how difficult it was for them turning up with no English and no money and forging their path in New Zealand and becoming very successful in doing so because they worked hard and they wanted a better life for their families, like no doubt many of you. We've got a lot of challenges in immigration. When I took on the portfolio, I didn't quite realise just what a broken state the immigration system was in. And it's not okay for the immigration minister to blame COVID. Of course, COVID has presented some challenges, but it has just exacerbated what was already there. We all know that the queues for residents started well before COVID. We all know that back in 2018 they instigated secret queues, priority queues and non-priority queues for residents because of the enormous backlog. And this was all totally predictable and totally avoidable. They knew very well that on the one hand they were inviting record numbers of migrants to New Zealand. If you look at the number to March 2020, the net arrivals was 80,000. The next highest back, I think you have to go back to about 2016, was 65,000. So in 2019 and 2020, before COVID, when Grant Robertson was talking about how wonderful the economy was and how great things were doing and how wonderful New Zealand was and how we were getting ahead, what he wasn't telling you was that record numbers of migrant workers were coming into the country to help us with that. And he will never say that, but that was the truth. But this is where the totally avoidable part comes into play, is that at the very, very same time, they had the political rhetoric of we're going to reduce immigration because, and they ran that Winston Peters line, which he's been banging on about for the last 20 years, that migrants are the cause of all of our problems, that they take our houses and they cause infrastructure problems, and so we must reduce the number of residence positions that we give. So that was what they were telling the public. We're going to reduce immigration because look at the numbers of residents, they're going down. What they did not tell anyone was at the same time, they were saying, oh, welcome to New Zealand, we need your skills. And an acknowledgement that we are desperately short through our regions and through different sectors of good, skilled people. And so, of course, when you have a flood at one end, but only a very small trickle coming out the other, what happens? An enormous backlog. A backlog that was totally predictable, that they knew about because Ian Lees-Galloway, the then Minister of Immigration, took a cabinet paper warning them that this would happen. And what did they do about it? Absolutely nothing. They let this carry on until now. And they use COVID as a convenient excuse for all of the troubles. But we all know very well that these troubles go way back. Because you can't have one policy on the one hand that you don't talk about and another one on the other end that you do talk about. And so now we hear the minister talking about the immigration reset, and which is causing a lot more angst. But my thoughts are on a reset. What do you do when something is broken? You reset it. It's the first thing you do when you call the IT line. Turn it off and on again. Reset it. It's broken, reset it. So it's an acknowledgement by the minister that our immigration system is broken. And in his speech, it wasn't his speech, he was sick, so he sent Honourable Stuart Nash to deliver a speech a number of weeks ago that was, the Prime Minister actually talked about. She said to journalists, we've got a big presentation on immigration coming, you're going to learn a lot, it's going to be amazing. And we all waited with bated breath for this 30-minute presentation from the Honourable Stuart Nash on the immigration reset and what that would mean. And people flew to Wellington, sector groups flew to Wellington. I tuned in, all the journalists were there waiting for this big announcement. And all we got was an announcement that there would be a future announcement. We've heard this before, but they did it again, thinking that we'd all fall into the same trap, because all we heard was, oh, well, we want more skilled migrants and things won't be the same, and actually we want to have a not such a greater reliance on lower skilled migrants, but we definitely want to attract highly skilled migrants. Now, the first thing I'd like to say about that is every single country in the world says the same thing. We want highly skilled migrants. Of course, that's you Google how to do immigration, and that's what it says: attract highly skilled migrants. So it wasn't exactly anything that blew our socks off. But while I was listening to him give this speech, I thought to myself, well, how do you attract good, hardworking, skilled people to New Zealand? Because if we want those people to come here, or indeed if we want those people who are already here to stay, we actually have to give them something to offer. We have to be the best if we want the best. And right now we are so far from the best. And I was just talking to some people in the crowd earlier saying that people don't always choose to come to New Zealand for the pay, because we all know that across the ditch, paid a bit more, go to Canada, more opportunities. People come here for something different, and they come here for New Zealand because we're a bit different, because we're nice people and that we live in a safe society, and it's the lifestyle. You come here for your children to give them a better life. But what Immigration New Zealand and the minister has now done is completely ruined that, because nobody wants to come anymore. It's all very well to stand up and say, we want the best of the best. We want these highly skilled people to help us increase our productivity. My question to the government is, why would they come here? To sit in a queue that goes nowhere. You can't buy a house, can't join KiwiSaver. And some of you are here, I know, because your children have turned 18, because you're sitting in a queue, can't get residence, and now your children can't do anything. There is nothing for them, and I'll talk about that later. So our international reputation as a country to come to has been ruined. We can get it back. We can absolutely get it back. But at the moment, things are getting worse. And I go on those migrant pages and I look when people say, I'm thinking about coming to New Zealand, what's it like? And about 100 of you say, do not come. And here's the reasons why. And I can tell you I've spoken recently to a number of immigration lawyers and immigration advisors who say to me, when people, good skilled people come to them and say, look, I'm thinking about coming to New Zealand, their first reaction now is, oh, in all good conscience, can I tell them to come here? And for those who also deal with Australia, they're actually saying to these people, you're better off in Australia. Imagine that. New Zealanders here are saying to people, they don't want to, but they're saying you're better off in Australia. And that's what we're facing. So what I've been battling, I've sort of been trying to pick my battles because there's so much going on. And you will have seen through the split migrant family issue that we lobbied the government over. It was just a spotlight on one part, one small part of the immigration system that was so broken that these guys knew about. In fact, the Prime Minister in May last year said it was going to be her priority to reunite split migrant families. And then they completely ignored the problem all of last year until early this year when I got this job and went out and spoke to people in the community, and it got raised with me and I couldn't look away. You cannot talk to women and men who haven't seen their little children and coming up 18 months and not stand up in the house and scream and shout about it. It is not right. In anyone's world, that is not right. We have 1,500 rooms still in MIQ, empty every single night. And we are choosing not to reunite split migrant families. We did get a little bit of a backtrack by the ministry. He acknowledged that there was the nurses had an anomaly because they weren't able to bring their children before COVID, but then could after. So he fixed that, and he made a very, as I suspected he would, he made a very small category of split migrant families that could be reunited. And that is wonderful. In fact, one of the men that I met, Henko De Beer, who lives down in Hamilton, he was one of the very lucky ones. His family are here now in isolation in Auckland. They get out soon. He left South Africa when his baby was 4 days old. And he showed me some pictures the other day of this little blonde toddler. And I just thought, man, we did that. And not just me, but people like Katie Armstrong and the Reunite Migrant Families groups and all of you who get on social media and give this government hell about it and say that is not right. Together, we did that. And it just makes me so emotional to think of the day that he gets to cuddle his little son who he hasn't seen since he was 4 days old. And I just think, man, if there's one reason to get into politics, it's that. Changing people's lives. There's a lot more to go on split migrant families. We've had 9,000 rooms free since the beginning of the year. We could have reunited them all by now, but we have chosen not to. We let in 1,000 workers for Weta. We let in Wiggles and all sorts of other people, and entertainers and nannies, and the government has made those choices. And my argument is we need a roadmap to reunification for all split migrant families. It's not that hard to do. They're very easy to figure out who they are and say to them, right, here is a roadmap over the next 8 months, 9 months. Here are 100 places a week or 100 places a month or whatever they think that they can manage to give these people light at the end of the tunnel. And I will keep calling on the minister to do that. So that's sort of one thing we've highlighted. The next big issue that I've been pushing the government on, and I think just recently there's been some movement, but that's the residency queues that we've been talking about. and that I mentioned earlier that have been coming since early 2018 because of poor policy. And what I'm doing at the moment is focusing on the real human cost of that. Because if you walked up to someone in the street and said, look, residency queues are really long, it could be 2, 3, 4 years, people might go, oh, so what? Like, people can just wait, surely. What I'm trying to highlight is actually the human cost of that by migrants who came here with children who are 16, 17, maybe even 15, having a reasonable expectation that they would have their residency either through work to residence or essential skills within a reasonable period of time, because that's what they read on the immigration website, that's what they were told by the immigration officials. Especially work to residence, you do your 2 years, and then it's usually 6 to 9 months. Sometimes it can take a little bit longer if there's some issues with your application, but generally, in at 30, 34, 36 months, you would have your residence. And at the moment, when you put your work to residence application in, it doesn't even get picked up for 18 months. It doesn't get picked up off the desk for 18 months, and then goodness knows how long. So you're sitting in a queue for 2 years that they've dumped with all of the other people. So, residency's never been guaranteed. There are always things that change, and people understand that when they come here. But this is very, very different. No one came to New Zealand thinking that there would be the longest residence queue in history. No one came to New Zealand thinking that the expression of interest queue was going to get frozen with 10,000 applications sitting in it. No one knew in 2018 that they were going to have these secret residency queues that you could get fast-tracked if you earned more or less. And so a lot of this was going on. It wasn't open and transparent. And people would potentially have made very different decisions whether or not to come to New Zealand had they known. If it actually was true, what it said on the immigration website, come to New Zealand, you will sit in a queue for 2 years, and then it will take 2 years to have your residence processed. By the way, don't forget you can't buy a house. And if your kids turn 18, good luck to them. Would anyone have come to New Zealand if they'd read the truth on the immigration website, right? No. So we've got to turn that around, and COVID is a useful excuse for the government, and we will be looking very closely at their immigration reset. I have my doubts about it already from what I've heard, because I think that this government doesn't understand that certain sectors in New Zealand need staff. They're crying out right now, and certain regions in New Zealand, in fact most regions in New Zealand, are crying out for staff. The hospitality sector are crying out. The Restaurant Association are doing a lights out. They can't get chefs, they can't get front of house, they can't get managers. Hotels can't get bar staff, they can't get front of house staff. And I'm talking to the manufacturing sector, they can't get staff. You can't get a diesel engineer for love nor money in this country. A diesel mechanic, I should say. There are so many people in the regions throughout New Zealand and in lots of different sectors that are struggling to get ahead, who are trying to claw their way out of what happened last year. They took on huge loans, they're in debt, and they've got their hands tied behind their back because the really good skilled migrants that they've got here in New Zealand already are leaving because they're on either 6-month rolling visas, which doesn't give them any hope at all. And I made this very clear when we gave the minister, a little while ago, we gave him the powers for 2 years to be able to extend classes of visa. And that was a line ball call, because while I agree that these visas need to be extended, the way in which he does it is not cool. Sometimes you get a week before a whole class of visa is due to expire, and he announces that they're going to be renewed for another 6 months. I know the ones he just did recently, the working holiday visas. I spoke to so many people, a lot of them from South America, who said to me, what's going to happen? Is he going to extend it? I'm due to leave in 2 weeks. I've already had to book a flight. I don't know what's going on. And then, oh, hey, presto, they're being extended, but only for 6 months. And that is the problem. It's the way in which he does this, with no thought to those people who are here in New Zealand, who are living from visa to visa. Their lives are, they're living extremely anxious lives. They've got no certainty. It's a terrible space to be a migrant at the moment in New Zealand, but it's also a terrible space if you're an employer. Because if you think about employers who've got these amazing staff that they want to hang on to, that they love, that they desperately need, and they're thinking, well, They could be gone in 6 months, or they could be gone in 2 weeks' time. We haven't had an update from the minister yet. So it's putting New Zealand businesses under extreme pressure. And I've heard from so many of them that their good staff are just going, I've had enough, I can't do this anymore, and are leaving. So we've got a situation in New Zealand where we are at pretty low unemployment. We've got sectors and regions across New Zealand who are screaming out for staff who are all leaving. And I made the point in Parliament the other day. I said, if you look at the EOI queue and who's in it, and I forget the numbers off my head, top of my head, so I'll try and remember, but I think there was something like 900 nurses, 500 doctors, and another 500 teachers. There are incredibly good, hardworking, skilled people that are already here in New Zealand that I meet every day who are stuck in a system that is going nowhere. And I just think to myself, why are we not hanging on to these people? Because our borders aren't going to be opened anytime soon, I can tell you that. And I know that because no one's been vaccinated. They keep telling us that we'll be vaccinated by the end of the year, but you can see if you're any good at math, and I'm half decent at math, and even I can tell, there is no chance that we'll be vaccinated by the end of the year. And New Zealand needs to be open to the world. We are a tiny little nation right at the bottom of the world. We rely on trading and being open with other nations, and we need to get a plan in place so that we can start opening up to the world again. And our very slow vaccination rollout is hindering that. But it's also meaning the minister is not making decisions on anything either. He will not even mention whole classes of visa because he's just not doing anything about it. We need a plan. We need a much, much better view of the world to New Zealand. We need to get our reputation back because, as I said earlier, if we want to be or to have the very best people here, the hardest working people and the good skilled people in New Zealand, then we have to be the best because we are competing against Australia, Canada, the UK, who are all doing the same. You see Canada who are targeting people, specific people, making it easier to get residents. Australia are doing the same. Why do we think we're any different? Why do we think we need to close ourselves off to the world and reduce everything to think, oh, we'll just be okay on our own, thank you very much? Not in any other country in the world is doing that right now. They all know the reality of clawing your way out of COVID. And that is by having a really smart immigration policy. And at the moment, the words that are coming out of the minister are not that smart, frankly. I think just saying, oh, there will be a reset at some point in the future and it'll be very different and we won't have the numbers we've had before and it'll be very highly skilled people. Well, my message to him is firstly, what are you going to do to turn our reputation around? Because those people will not come. And second of all, you need to think really carefully about the kinds of people that we need in New Zealand. Because we need people in the dairy sector, we need people in the aged care sector, we need people in the manufacturing sector. And do they fit your category of very highly skilled? Well, maybe they don't, but we still need them here. And there was a great acknowledgement, I thought, this week, and I made the point in the House, where I said, a month ago, your offsider gave a speech about the immigration reset where we were only going to focus on very highly skilled people. And less than a month later, here you are extending working holiday visas and making low-skilled work visas 12 months rather than 6. Those two things are diametrically opposed. But at least my phone's going, which is telling me to stop talking and start answering questions. But I'll leave you with that, is that the messaging coming out of this government is confused. They kind of understand on the one hand that we do need these people here, but they know on the other it's much more politically palatable to say the opposite. And so they do different things. And the upshot of that is that New Zealand businesses have no confidence and no certainty, and they're really struggling. And that's only going to start to ramp up. You're going to see more and more of that. New Zealand businesses really becoming more vocal about the fact that they just can't get staff, and the good staff they've got are leaving. And you're going to get from migrants just the terrible way that they're being treated, the lack of certainty, the anxiety, and the worry that they have for their children who can't do anything. So we're in a right state. And what I will be doing for the next few months is doing this, going around talking to people, holding forums, getting all of the sector leaders, the chambers of commerce, the top economists, all those immigration lawyers and immigration people that I speak to all the time in the same room to help us formulate really smart, really nuanced policy that actually takes account of what we need in New Zealand, the future, not only the future of work, but actually what we need at a granular level down in the regions and sector by sector, so that the policy we do have is smart, nuanced, and will work for New Zealand so that we can claw our way out of all of this money we've borrowed for the COVID recovery. So that's my plan for the next little while, but you are part of that. I need to speak to you, and I know that there are some immediate concerns you've got, but then there'll also be long-term concerns as well, and I'm happy to hear all of that. And afterwards, I will stick around. I'll be here till 4, and I'm happy to talk to each of you individually and hear your stories, and we'll have some food, I think, as well, so we can eat and talk and the rest of it. So we have a roving mic with Kelly here, so if you want to ask a question or make a statement or a comment, please raise your hand, and the lovely Kelly will come and find you with her mic. Just maybe state your name.
Thank you, Rika. I'm Indian and a licensed immigration advisor working for Worldwide Immigration. 11 years practice in this field. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Rika, becoming voice of Indian in Parliament, and we're really proud of you. The way you are speaking on the immigration factor, just a few things I want to say. I'm talking about inequality of this government, what's they doing to us. In 2018, if you see the figures, 72% of working Indians, they are in employment. Are we unemployed? We're not unemployed. Are we burdened on the system? We are not burdened on New Zealand economy at all. $10 billion GDP contribution in 2018 done by Indians only. And look at the 2020, I think so in 2019, this ratio has gone up by maybe say 15 to $17 billion. And how we've been treated. The good example you told me, the one of South African family's child is in their country and they are struggling. So many Indians, they are in mental stress. Their family are in mental stress, no one talk about it. And in immigration partnership category, work visa category, the way they are addressing those issues, not acceptable at all. Immigration officer, they're using their discretionary powers to revoke someone's residency, turning their visas applications down, and they're not picking up the application, not right. As you said, it's not okay. So that's when they said that so many databases with us, but we can talk a lot about, but becoming Indians' voice in Parliament this time, I'm really proud of you. You're saying those things to the ministers. Ministers talking about inequality. It's not the ministers only, behind that picture who's working that. We have to address those issues too.
Okay.
Thank you so much. And I will say, if you can raise those issues with Parliament, bring our families, broken family from our country. We haven't done anything wrong. Families are struggling, their child, their partners, everyone. I want to become their voice, but because you're addressing this issue in Parliament, we can't go in Parliament. I'm really proud of you. Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you.
All right. It was more of a statement, so I need to respond.
Hi, Erika. As you mentioned earlier, the problem which United families are faced, I would like to share my experience. They just declined my daughter's request yesterday. I'm a registered nurse in New Zealand, and my daughter is living in India since 2016, and I haven't seen her. I just seen her in 2019, only 10 days when my brother passed away. I didn't spend much time with her. And this is the 7th time I'm request to the immigration, please allow my daughter to come back in New Zealand, because it's only my mother who is looking after my daughter. And my mother is not capable to look after her because she's suffering from post-traumatic stress disorder due to my brother's death. And my mother every day is saying to me, please bring her back because I cannot look after her. If you can't take her back, just move to Australia because you have a registered nurse registration from Australia as well. Why are you not moving to Australia? She wants me to take my daughter back in New Zealand as soon as possible. She's saying take her back before I die. Because she's the only one who is looking after her at the moment. If she dies, then nobody will be there to look after my daughter because she is already suffering from trauma.
How old is she?
She's 6.
Oh, I'm really sorry. Look, are you on a post-study work visa? Is that the...
I'm a work visa, essential skill work visa.
Essential skills. And so you didn't get included in that anomaly?
I included everything. Like I included the situation back in India that nobody's there.
This is the issue, is that when they announced the changes to split migrant families, that some would come in, I knew they would do this. I knew they would just choose a very tiny, small slice of the pie and say, job done, and walk away. But actually, there is a lot of other people out there, like yourself, who haven't been able to be reunited. And so we've got to keep the pressure up. If you stick around afterwards, I'll have a chat to you about maybe how we can help. But you're not alone, because it depends. They made it so narrow. There are different people here on post-study work visas who don't fall into the category, or they'll make some other excuse why to decline you, and then often you'll never even understand why you were declined in the first place. There's no reason given. So look, I feel so awful for you. I'm so sorry. But if you stick around afterwards and either talk to myself or Kelly, or take your details and see what we can do. But you are the voice of so many hundreds of people out there. And the problem, I mean, it's heartbreaking for you. But I'll tell you what, we don't want you to go to Australia, because guess what? We need nurses here in New Zealand. We are desperately short of nurses. I don't know the exact figure, but we kind of did it back of an envelope, and it's about 1,000 nurses short. And we're forcing people to go offshore. And all we will do is replace you with another migrant who can bring their children. It just makes no sense, and I made this point to the Minister, is if you reunite the families of these healthcare workers, then they don't have to leave and we don't have to replace them, because we don't train enough of our own nurses. So it is an awful an unimaginable situation for you, but also for New Zealand. If we lose you, terrible. Because that's why the nurses are kind of on strike at the moment. Well, it's about pay, but it's also about conditions, because they're so overworked, because there's a massive workforce shortage. So,
but I think immigration don't care about that. They close the EUI, and most of the nurses are planning to move Australia because they cannot apply the resident visa here. They have an opportunity to get straight permanent residency in Australia, and they are going there.
There's 900 nurses right now in the expression of interest queue going nowhere. And that's exactly what will happen. You're right, they'll go to Australia. And we're 1,000 nurses short, so we'll be 2,000 nurses short if they all leave. So no, I'll have a chat with you afterwards. Thank you for sharing your story. Oh, down here.
You made my job easy today. I actually heard your brief introduction, and thank you very much for coming and giving us time and coming in the public with immigration issues. Thank you very much for Radio Spice team for organizing this event. I would like to please address the issues. I have 3 questions for you.
Yep.
First is the current immigrant situation who are living onshore and offshore. Second is housing related to immigrants, how it's been seen nowadays. And thirdly, national party standpoint of view on immigrants. So firstly, I would tell you that, for example, in 2015 or 16, New Zealand immigration has promoted the New Zealand as a study destination and an immigrant-friendly destination. That time, an immigrant would have searching and choosing his intended destination to go. We actually get charged 10 times more than the money of domestic student to make the tertiary education free.
Yeah.
And we actually take huge loan. Immigration New Zealand knows everything. So putting all the savings back in our home countries. For example, I spent almost $50,000 to $70,000 till now, including living costs and everything, and took the huge loan back in my home country. Immigration at that time, when I was searching, comparing the country, and I saw New Zealand is the good place and coming here is a good choice, because they say support our economy, be a good resident, being a good people in the society, you would get chance to have a pathways to residency. At that time, they said you should have 140 points or something. But once I actually paid my all the father's life-saving money. What I end up with, they actually after 6 months says, no, sorry, it's 160 points. Sorry, it's $26. Now they say $27, please. And once we get eligible for that, we actually applied the residency even. For 1 year, we actually having no response. And afterwards, I have a real brother who actually was who actually already applied for residency, and he actually just went to back see his mother. Her mother was not well, and he's in the queue in the residence queue, but his visa is expired. He's back in India. He can't able to come back.
Yeah.
So you would find many of the people actually not exist here even in the residency queues. And for my friend actually, if they would have processed the residency on time, she would her daughter would be resident, and just only 1 month the border has been closed, she would able to return back, isn't it so? So it's whole immigrants are in distress. They're getting daily news their father is mother no more. They actually working hard in isolations. They're supporting the economy in this medical emergency.
Yeah.
But what we ending up is a mental distress and no hopes at all.
Yeah. And that's what the story that I hear everywhere I go. And look, to be fair to the government, the borders are closed for a reason, right? And I think we all understand the reason why the borders are closed. We have to, and the minister will say it over and over again, we're going to keep New Zealanders safe. But the point is that how do we get out of this more quickly so that we can all get back to being able to travel to see parents who are unwell or go to important ceremonies or whatever we need to do overseas. There is no plan for that. In fact, we will be one of the last countries in the world at this rate to open up to the rest of the world. And so the very first thing I'd say is that we have to get our population vaccinated as quickly as possible. And on top of that, we need a plan as to how we're opening to the rest of the world. Because as anyone here heard, what happens when we're all vaccinated? Will the border still remain shut? Will we be able to travel? None of that has been laid out. So everyone is just still in the dark. Look, and I understand what you're saying about offshore migrants who have been stuck. There has been absolutely nothing from this government. They made a very small pledge early on for people who are normally resident in New Zealand, but it was again only a very small amount. But since then we've heard absolutely nothing. So the minister will never talk about post-study work visa holders, people stuck offshore. He will never talk about them. I'm
talking about onshores as well.
Yep.
For example,
we'll get to that.
Yep.
So and I know that there are people here as well, but as I said, we've got to remember that we're all sacrificing. The borders are closed. So I think you were talking about it in terms of people being able to travel, right?
No. I'm talking about, for example, if someone, a student, they spend billions of dollars advertising.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, no,
please.
Can I just add something to that?
Yeah.
I understand the borders are closed, but what the point he's trying to make is the borders can remain closed just for a reason for COVID. But what about the people that are on visas here that are expiring, that are hoping that immigration department opens up and does their job? It's a big department. It's got a lot of people employed. They've suddenly shut and stopped functioning. A lot of people that are here, they have visas. I've got a friend standing at the back who spent $40,000 to come to this country and study. And the point, I like the point he made, when the criteria was 140 points, it should be applied to the people that came after that criteria was raised. So the immigration department right now is looking at a scam department. Each time you reach the goalpost, they're shifting it, making it impossible for everybody
so the main
that have
issue
come
is
here for the
when
future.
we would have good option back in our home country.
We were comparing the rules and everything, and we contributed a lot to the society, worked hard and become skilled migrants, and at that time we actually would have better choice to put our life saving to immigrants friendly countries like Canada or somewhere. So we actually feel like when we are about to reach to the goal after 2 years, they increase 20 points, which again we have to work 2 years more to get 20 points, and then it's a rat race.
Totally understand. Sorry, I understand what you're talking about. Look, I get the fact that New Zealand does change its border settings and its point settings along the way to try and manage the flows of people in and out of New Zealand, because those are the only levers that we have, right? And that's the trouble the government's got itself in the moment, is that they didn't change the points or really do much for a long time. And so we had a lot of people arriving at the same time reducing the number of residents. So the levers that we have to pull are the income levels and the points levels. The issue that you're raising is that the goalposts shift and you come here with one expectation and then they shift and then they shift again. And that's something that we have to have a think about what we're going to do, because those things will keep happening, right? They will keep happening because we have to be able to control flows of migration in New Zealand so that we don't end up with lots of people coming with expectations and then not being able to get residents because the residence numbers aren't equal to the amount of people coming in. So it's one of the levers we have. The question is, for people in your situation, what do we do about those people who came with an expectation and who paid a lot of money for their education and then find that the goalposts have shifted? Do we need to think about that policy and say, right, well, maybe it only applies to people who come after that change is made? So these are the kinds of things we have to have a think about. But you've got to remember that those are the only levers that New Zealand has to be able to sort of control the flows of migration into New Zealand. The point that you've raised, which is a really good one, well, what about the people who are already here, who are then affected by those? And maybe that, that needs to be had a look at. Should it affect people who are already here, or should they be able to go under the old rules? It is a difficult, very fine balance because, as I said, those are the only levers that we have to sort of control things so we don't invite a load of people here with certain expectations and then not have places for them to stay. And that's exactly what has happened. So I absolutely understand your point. When you come and you spend a lot of money on your education and then find yourself having to move out of Auckland, having to do more education, and I know lots of migrants have done exactly that. They've upskilled, they've got onto a higher wage, they've worked really hard, or they've gone on and get extra education just to then meet those points. And then I hear you, something else happens and suddenly they've got to earn more money. So it's something that we need to think about because it's not fair when you come with a certain expectation. Although, and the one thing that the Minister has said, and he said it in committee, I believe, is that he said that quite a number of times actually, residence is not guaranteed. The goalposts will shift. But the question is, well, how often do we shift the goalposts and who should they affect? Should they affect people who are already here who've spent a lot of money? And those are some of the questions we need to have a think about. So it's totally on my radar and I completely understand your point. And I know that there are a lot of people who've been caught up in that and have taken out huge loans and are now stuck with the goalposts that have been shifted.
Yeah.
Yes.
I'm Daniel. I'm from
Daniel.
Daniel, yes. I'm from Europe, from Romania.
Yes.
I've been in New Zealand since March 2020. My newborn baby, I have a newborn baby. He was born while I was in New Zealand. I never met him. I never meet my newborn baby. And last year in August, I asked for an exemption to be able to go back home to assist to my son birth. The answer was you cannot apply for exemption while you are in New Zealand. You have to be abroad,
offshore,
outside. So I didn't understand how can I make a decision to go out from New Zealand if I don't know if I'm able to come back. So I have to. I don't know why it's this. Why is this rule to not be able to apply for an exemption while you are in New Zealand?
Yeah. I don't know the exact circumstances of your case as to why you needed to travel. Was it an emergency?
My baby was born in August last year, and I want to assist my wife. And to assist to be there to see my son while he was born.
And you're on a temporary visa.
I'm on a talent visa, talent accredited migrant visa, yeah.
Yeah, I guess the answer to your question, and I have to agree with the Minister on this one. The borders are closed. The borders are closed, and they're closed for a reason. And I know it's heartbreaking, and I know it's not ideal. But you've got New Zealanders who are in exactly the same boat.
I'm not asking why they didn't approve my exemption. Why they didn't? The answer was we cannot consider your application, your request, because you are still in New Zealand.
Yes.
This I didn't understand. They could tell me yes or no. You can go or you can stay here, but. And the second,
they did actually change those rules. I'm not sure if for migrants, but I know for New Zealanders, because I wrote to the Minister and said to him, when there is an offshore emergency
Yeah.
and you need to travel offshore and come back, you need to be able to apply from New Zealand. And I know that
No.
they did actually change that.
When-
I don't know if they did it for
Okay.
migrants though, or if it
Okay.
was just for visa.
And I have
citizens.
the second question. Because I have an agreement with New Zealand, which my visa, it's an agreement. Yeah. So now I see that New Zealand broke the the agreement conditions. Yeah. Because I came here on I have a written on a signed paper by New Zealand and by
Sorry,
me.
I'm struggling to hear you. Is the mic actually working?
It is. You just need to.
Just
Yeah.
get rid of the red one. Rid of the red one. And just hold it right up to your mouth because I can't hear you. I'm sorry.
So
That's better.
so my visa is an agreement with New Zealand.
Yeah.
So I fulfill my part of this agreement. New Zealand didn't. So New Zealand broke the agreement terms. So it's a legal situation here, if I see. But my question, this is a statement. My question is, last Saturday was a meeting in Auckland. Before the meeting, I saw all over the media, in Parliament, a lot of debates regarding the migrants' families,
Yes.
issues, a lot of news, a lot of debates. After that, completely silent. Last week, no word anywhere in media, no word in Parliament, no word anywhere about the protest.
Yeah.
So no TV, no newspaper gives any details about this protest.
Yeah.
And
What?
no word about the migrants' families issue. I don't know what is happening. It's
No,
don't
well,
know what
it
why-
was like, so the question was, why is it not being promoted in the media? To be fair, I think I saw it and stuff, and I couldn't make that. I was away, so I couldn't make it. But it was reported. The issue is that it's very hard to get an answer out of the minister on any of this stuff. So I've been on and on and on at him for a really long time, and it's not until there's consistent pressure from the media that makes him make a decision. I've got some stuff coming, you'll see, hopefully in the next couple of weeks, to really push him on the queues. And we're also going back and asking him why he's not doing anything about the split migrant families. The problem is that the minister is able to ignore them because they don't have a voice, because they don't have a vote, quite frankly. And it's easy enough to continue to ignore them. So it's up to me and those migrant groups, and I see some of you wearing the T-shirt, I should have worn mine, to keep that pressure up in the media. I've been trying my best, but it's not always easy. And to be fair, over the last couple of weeks, there's been a lot of other stuff in the media, some of it not so good for National. But the point is that it really can be quite hard in a very crowded media to get this stuff up, and I'm working really hard to keep doing that, but I need the support of these migrant families to get their stories so I can get them up in the media to keep putting pressure on the minister. The only reason he made that decision to reunite some of those split migrant families was because Tova O'Brien ran that story 4 nights in a row, and she stopped the Prime Minister and embarrassed her over the issue. So we've just got to keep doing it. And I'm kind of the only one. Sometimes I feel like I'm screaming in the wind in Parliament doing that. But so I need the support of all of you to write him a letter every single day. Write him an email. Keep telling him your stories and pressuring him to do something, because he won't ignore us forever. Yes, and you just need to hold it quite close to your mouth. It's a little bit.
All right.
Thank you.
Okay. Hi, Erika. My name is Shivani. I'm a licensed immigration advisor and have been helping migrants for quite some time now. And the issue that I want to raise and address here is that government, during the COVID-19, what they did was that in light of COVID-19, if anybody is eligible to apply under critical purpose list, they are most welcome to apply under critical purpose list. If the expression of interest is approved, then they can apply for a visa, and then visa is approved, they are allowed to come.
Yes.
Now, thing is that when we apply for critical purpose list, especially for a friend like who just mentioned about the daughter, she's into healthcare industry, and her daughter was not allowed to come here 7 times the year I was rejected.
Yeah.
So what I mean is that what happens is that when we apply, when a migrant submit the application and write a story in the critical purpose list, then within within a day or two, immigration sends an automated email saying that no, you did not provide enough evidence and we don't believe that you meet the criteria for critical purpose list. Now my question is, at the time of the application, there is no way that we can upload any evidence or we can say that yes, we do meet the criteria. So if it's an automated email that we get, then my valid question is that what happens is that, every time when we are into this course and we help migrants have been told that if you provide any misleading information to Immigration New Zealand, it's a punishable act. And you will get, it's an offense. So what is immigration doing? Are they not doing the misleading information? Are they not providing misleading information to migrants?
Yeah.
It's a big concern. If they meet the criteria for critical purpose list, they should simply allow to come here. And then another thing is that critical purpose list. Earlier, there was no fee to be charged for that. And then they started, charging $45 or some odd fee for that. Is it simply not the case of, making money out of those? Yeah. So, what is it? Like, I really need an answer for that.
Yeah. Well, I'm not the government, so I can't answer, but I can certainly sympathise, and I know exactly what you're talking about. There is nowhere for you on those forms to give full information as to the critical purpose of the request. And so that's the first thing they come back and say, you haven't provided enough evidence. And I've had exactly the same from many people saying, well, where on the form or the attachments was I supposed to give that? And you're absolutely right. It does start to stink a little bit of a money-making exercise, because you talk to many of these split migrant families who've done over 40 applications, hoping that they will just find some immigration case officer who will eventually process it. And it does happen. And they hear the stories because they say, I did it 20 times and then we got approved. So the consistency amongst the decision-making doesn't seem to be there. It does feel a little bit like it is a money-making exercise in that regard. But also the fact that you mentioned that they're not actually asking for the information that they then decline you on is totally unfair. And I've actually raised that with them before, and I don't think anything has changed. And the issue is also there's no reason. There's no full reasons given. And you can write to them and say, but this exact same case with the exact same reasons, they got accepted and I didn't. And they just say, computer says no, we're not telling you anything. And so I think that's part of the frustration, and you've probably had that, where you can't understand why you got one and why you didn't get the other. But they don't ever tell you why, right? There's no explanation given. But I've raised it before. I'll raise it again with them and see where we get to. But I know it's an ongoing issue, and it is so frustrating.
Yeah, and same thing approves, after, if you keep applying like 7 times, 8 times, then the same story gets approved. Yeah. So, if it was, if they believe that, it was something concerning and that applicant should be allowed to come, then they should have been allowed to come at the first EOI only.
Yeah,
and so that means no one is reading it. It's absolutely automation that is going on.
It seems to be down to the absolute discretion of the case officers, and if you just happen to get the one who is having a good day or whatever. I mean, immigration officers do a great job. I'm not trying to get down on them. They are led by a minister who's asleep at the wheel and who hasn't been involved in his portfolio enough, and so there's no direction given to them, and so it makes it very, very difficult for them to do their jobs. But it is really hard to understand why, when you've done 20 applications and have all said no, and then finally you get one that says yes, how that is possibly happening. So I'll raise it with them again, absolutely.
Thank you.
Got one at the back.
Hi, my name is Leah. I'm from the United States, and I moved here in January 2020 with my 3 sons. I'm a teacher in South Auckland, and I was recruited by the government to actually come here and give me a grant.
They paid you a grant
to come? They gave me a
come?
grant to come.
Yeah.
So you've invested in me and in my family being here, and I sold the idea of moving to New Zealand to my sons who were reluctant to come here. But they're now at an age where they can't work. I have a year 13 who's about to graduate, and as far as I understand, he can't work or even volunteer.
No.
And so I guess what I want you to speak to is, what should we do? And also, what about the mental health piece of people who are stuck here? The New Zealand kind of came into a contract, I believe, with all migrants who came here, as far as like providing mental health, and I feel like it's a toll for so many people in this room.
Yeah.
So.
Firstly, I'd just like to say, don't leave without talking to me, because I've got something coming on this and I'd really like to have a chat with you about it. I raised the, so the issue is that, you know, migrants' children, when they turn 18 and the residency isn't yet approved, then in order to stay in their parents' residency application, those 18-year-olds can't do anything. They can't work, they can't study because it's too expensive at tertiary. They can't even volunteer in case they are deemed to be independent from their parents' application and then have to get residency on their own, which is almost impossible. And it's kind of always been the case. Like for decades, it's been the case where sometimes if your application gets stuck somehow or there's an issue with it and your child turns 18, but it's been very rare and it usually gets sorted quite quickly. We're at a situation now because of these horrifically long residence queues where people expected to be able to get their residence, or they were sold that and told that within a certain period of time, and they knew that they had their children who were sort of 16, 17, 18 who would be okay, would get their residence before they turned 18. That is no longer the case. So you and many, many thousands of others who have children who have already turned 18, who are about to turn 18, are going, what do we do for our kids next year? And my point that I've been making to the media is this is the time of their lives. This is when they're supposed to be finding themselves, hanging out with their mates, experimenting and, you know, all sorts of things. And that sounded bad, but you know what I mean. When you're 18, right, you're just living your life and you're having a great time, and it's supposed to be the best years of your life. And you go into university or a trade and you find out who you are. But these kids now, because they can't do that because the tertiary fees are far too high, and they cannot possibly work because it might kick them out of their parents' residency applications, are sitting at home. And there are thousands of these kids around New Zealand who are sitting at home doing nothing. And the stories that I've heard from, because I've spoken to over 50 people now in this exact same situation, and this is what they tell me. When my child was at school, they were happy, they were doing sports, they were dancing, they were doing art, they were outgoing and bubbly and amazing. And now they're sitting at home, they're sleeping in, they don't get out of bed, they don't brush their teeth, they are not the same kid. And the mothers and fathers that I talk to will cry on the phone to me about the state of their kids now compared to a year ago and their mental health issues. But they're terrified to get any help about it because in case it might affect their residency on the health grounds. So what a terrible situation we are putting young people in for no fault of their own, just because of our poor policy and planning that we've had. And you are not alone. There are thousands of kids around the country, and do you know what they're doing? They're doing year 13 again. So there are hundreds of kids around New Zealand who are now having to go back, even though they did a wonderful job and they passed all their credits, got university entrance, they're now going back to school. Imagine all of us here graduating high school and having to go back and do it all again for no reason. The effect on those kids is profound. And the parents that I've been speaking to are just distraught. There is no help for them. We are forcing them into that situation. Now, I asked the minister about this a number of weeks ago in select committee, and I said, why don't you give these kids a work visa? The reason they're in this situation is your fault. Give them a work visa and make sure that it doesn't exclude them from their residency application with their parents. And he said, oh, no, think about it. And I went on in the House about it, and he has now got to a point where he's just said, no way, not happening. And his words were, they have options. And I said to him, what options do they have? I pointed that out in the House. You tell me, Minister, what options they have. And he said to me, they could get a work visa. And I said to him, what work visa? And he again said, oh, there's lots of different options. And I said, no, name one work visa that they could go on that wouldn't jeopardise their residency application. And he said, oh, I couldn't tell you, I don't know. It's because it's not true. Every immigration agent that's here knows that the advice you give people is do not get a work visa for your child because they will no longer be dependent and they will not come on your residency, and they'll have to eventually go home because they won't get residency and you'll be split. So the thing that frustrates me about this the most is there's a really quite easy fix. Give them a work visa. At the same time, speed up the queue. And I do note, I have to say I do note, in the last couple of weeks, they seem to have been getting through those residency applications at a much faster pace than they have been. They were stuck in August forever. I know they're in September. Someone even said to me that they've gone on. And 1st of November. 1st of November. So that has happened really quickly, and it's no doubt because we lit a fire under the minister. So So there is something coming on this imminently in the media, and I'd really like to talk to you afterwards about it. It's not fair on these kids.
Hello everyone, I have the method to solve many people's problems. We can't open the full bottle now, but we can partly open the bottle. Just to tell the government to let the British Commonwealthy country holding their passport to come inside, and then many people's problems can solve. Just let the people holding the passport from the British Commonwealthy country.
Visa waiver country.
It's certainly an idea. The issue is, as I mentioned
Earlier, we really can't do anything until we're vaccinated. That's the problem. And every other country around the world is way ahead of us and will be in a position to start opening up their economies and opening up their borders. And all of that hard work that we did in 2020 and during those lockdowns will be for nothing, because we will be stuck at the bottom of the world with our borders closed for a lot longer than any of us expected, because we haven't been vaccinated and there's no plan. So while it's a great idea, until we're vaccinated, we can't even think about that. At the back, yes.
Hi Anka, my name is Malkiyat Singh. I'm from Carmento Immigration. My question is actually a statement and a comment, and then a question.
Okay.
So the statement is that I have been in this country as a migrant, and then later on I became advisor for migrants. And what I can see is that National Party was in power, now Labour is in power. And it appears as if power corrupts, and power kind of creates this illusion of reality. And then whosoever is the Minister of Immigration cannot see the actual facts. They kind of go into a different worldview and they can't see the problems happening. And it's always the opposition when they can see the problems. And I'm using this opportunity to make sure that I convey this message so that when you are in power, and we hope you go in power, and possibly then you would remember this interaction. So let's imagine we have this gentleman who said, I've spent thousands of dollars. I came here with the view that points are 140. This is my plan. I'll spend this much of money in studying and I'll become a resident. Goalposts change, and as we know, they have to change. Minister says all these reasons. And you have agreed that it cannot be as simple. There are many factors.
Yeah.
Now, when we look at the current economy, when COVID happened, suddenly government announced that all these New Zealanders who may be displaced from jobs, they can study these skilled trade courses. And if you look at these trades courses, they are level 3, level 4. Very few are at level 5 and level 6. But yet, when we are looking at skilled migrants, we want to have masters, we want to have PhDs, we want to have all these highly skilled people who will probably drive taxis. And then this typical example of doctors driving taxis, or whatever you want to name it.
Yeah.
When we are asking for people to become a resident, we are asking them of all these qualifications. Then when the National was in power, lots of institutes sold level 7 diplomas, level 5 diplomas, level 6 diplomas. We have thousands of those international students who are still in the country. They're still looking at a light at the end of the tunnel, and there is no pathway for them. They will now suffer when the salaries are being raised to median wage of $27. There are lots of these people who are struggling, and this will increase corruption and exploitation to enormous levels. What I'm asking and suggesting is, should it be a case where these migrants who are in the country, they should also have an opportunity to be a carpenter, to be a drain layer, to be a plumber? Why don't we open these courses to these migrants in the country? All these courses are free for New Zealanders because we think that these are the occupations we need people in. We want Kiwis to take up these jobs, which means there are jobs. We are struggling. We want to grow the economy. We want construction workers.
Yep.
Why don't create these pathways for these migrants who are already in the country and who would be more than willing and actually, I would say, more interested than Kiwis to do these courses? But I advise all these clients every day that, sorry, I know that you want to be a plumber, but there is no course which you could study. There is no option for you which is open for you as a migrant. So all these migrants are struggling. They don't have a retail manager position which will pay them $27, and they're getting into all these problems. They are working at $22, negotiating with their employer. How could they earn $27? Yeah. It's not likely to happen. Why don't we look at an option to create skilled pathways for them which will actually deliver results for the country? So I think as a minister, when you will become minister, I think you should consider this option of creating these low-level skilled pathways for immigration. And anybody who is in the country, if they want to upskill and they want to do these courses, there should be a simple pathway for them to take on these courses and perhaps become a dairy farmer or become whatever they wish to become.
Yeah, you make a really good point. And I think we haven't been smart enough in the past about who it is that we need in New Zealand and making sure that we attract the right people and then ensure that they work where we need them to be working. Because you're really right when you talk about doctors driving taxis. There's a whole lot of work that we need to do in really highly skilled people who actually come here and then are unable to work because their qualifications don't match up. That's a whole other story that we absolutely have to work on. But then you're right as well. We need to be really clear about the people that we need here, which is why I was talking earlier about a really smart approach to immigration where we say, right, here are the different sectors that we need people to come in to work in. And we can work in with our chambers of commerce and our different regional bodies. They can feed back and say, hey, look, in the Hawke's Bay, we need people who can work in pack houses, we need people who can work in aged care, we need people who can work in manufacturing, and we need so many of each one. And then we need to be able to sort of go to the world market and say, right, okay, here are the people we need. Here's a pathway to New Zealand. And by the way, if you're working in that industry and you're doing that and you're helping that region, then you have a pathway to residence. But at the moment, we sort of invite people here to do a degree in level 6, but there is sort of no pathway for them. And that's kind of the issue that we've got. We've got to get smarter about the skills that we need in New Zealand to grow our economy, making sure that we match those with the people that we need and being able to offer them a pathway to residence. I think you've highlighted a problem, and it indicates to me, and that's why I'm going to be talking to lots of different people all around the country to see how we can work for a much smarter immigration policy than just sort of saying, come here, study, and then there's nothing for you. Because it has been a huge problem, you're absolutely right. And we shouldn't have people come here, do a level 6 degree, who then don't have a pathway to residence. So there's lots of issues there to think about, and it requires a really smart approach to immigration. I'm just aware, I'm going to only take one more question, and the only reason is because it's 20 past, but I'm going to stay here, so don't worry. You can come and chat with me.
Can these problems can be taken towards the select committee meetings or maybe human rights problems? Our country is going towards the dictatorship. We are slowly losing democracy here. So these problems, when I look at that nurse problem, she can't even see her daughter, which is like that.
You're right, and we had this exact conversation.
My select committee, where the Split Migrant Families Group came to Parliament and they were calling for an inquiry in the select committee to raise exactly these points so that the minister would understand what's going on. Now, the Labour people voted that down. They said, oh, no, we understand migrant issues, we don't need an inquiry. And the thing that really annoyed me this week is that he's let in, what's a good thing, he's let in 200 farm workers. That's great, we need farm workers. And the journalist said to him, do you realise you've just created another split migrant family anomaly? And he went, oh no, I didn't. Oh, okay, I better go fix that. Had you listened in the first place to people at the select committee who would have told you that this is, and that's not the only anomaly, there's a million anomalies that he doesn't know about because he doesn't listen, and the government are closing down any select committee inquiries or any conversations into this, and that's what makes me so mad. I could have told him that was going to be an anomaly, but he's choosing not to listen. So.
He's a busy.
He can't answer questions based on immigration and policies and stuff like that. I think he's not qualified for that role, because if I had a job and I didn't show skills for it, I would be out of a job in a week. Nobody would tolerate me.
Is there any Labour minister is there a single Labour minister who has been taken to task for not doing his job? The government accepts failure.
The minister was doing something else.
Feels like South Africa.
Any Labour minister who has failed in his job is accepted by the government and told, no, you're doing a great job. It's up to us to show the government how we do it with our votes.
Yes.
Indian community, 50% of the population is between the age of 16 to 50. They are the voting population. The only way you can teach the government a lesson is at the ballot box.
But then not many people have those 2-3 years left before the next voting.
I'm talking about people who have residency. I'm not talking about
Yes,
people who
but the
they are
immigrants
here.
don't have that much time.
If you add that lot more, it's more. So if we want to empower them, we need to start a signature campaign. We need to get the numbers on there. It's exactly what happened during the COVID. The borders were open and she's saying, we went early and we went hard, we shut it. No, people were still being allowed in. The moment the National Party started the signature campaign, they closed the border. It's exactly the same thing here. We can come here, we can talk. Someone has to take the initiative.
But the people who
and we need to start a signature campaign that these are the 5 or 10 points we want the minister to answer on.
Yes.
You get 25-30,000 signatures on that, and believe me, she will have the force in Parliament to say, what are you doing for these people?
It does help.
Excuse me. Yes, we will do
You're
that.
talking about the.
That's what we need to
can do
Sorry,
that.
you're talking about the Indians who've already got residencies. They have
I'm
forgotten
talking
their
about-
struggles long back and are not
I'm
happy to help
talking about-
anybody.
Should we
They
just
think
go back
they're
to the floor?
themselves
I've
in a
got
very
one
prime
question at
minister
the back who's
situation.
We're patiently waiting. And we might take a few more until 1:30
A
and
different
then.
perspective. I am a PhD student at the University of Auckland.
Yes.
I am just about to finish, and I cannot get a job because either my visa is about to close, like it is going to be expired, so I am a liability for companies, even though I am a very highly skilled. And that brings me to the trouble that those that we have high skills, we cannot remain as well, because right now the university doesn't care because I don't pay anymore. And also, PhDs, we are subsidized by the government. We don't pay full as an international. So that is also a loss for New Zealand, because if I leave with my wife, we will take all those expenses that you pay to the university to make publications. So that is another thing that I want to raise awareness as well. And right now we are in limbo. If I at some point arrive to the post-study, then at that moment I will not be able to apply as well for residency. So bring that awareness as well, because we're the highly skilled people they claim to like. We're the ones doing the big things, the research things, but at the end we cannot remain because everything it is closed.
Yep.
And thank you so much for speaking for migrants. Thank you.
You're welcome, and you're exactly right. We're forcing good people.
I know you are late. This is Rajesh from Auckland Indian Retailers Association. I want to put one point. It's very important. We need the staff. We are facing the problem of shortage of the staff. We are not getting the staff. And in case if you advertise for the employees, I need the tailor, I need the beauticians, I need so many business people, they need the staff. But in case if you advertise, only the candidates apply for the job, students or maybe for work visa, and nothing. They ask can you give us $27? But small business, they can't afford $27. And who is responsible for this? Labor government. And this is the best way. I can, this gentleman told us, sign campaign and all that. We can help in that. And I say, Jacinda and Chris, down. You everybody say like that. Start from today. Jacinda, Chris, down. Jacinda, Chris, down. Jacinda, Chris, down.
Vote national.
Or just stand up and yell.
My name is Davinder. I am a trained environmental engineer working in this country for the last 3 years. I haven't seen my son for the last 2 years. I am in health and safety in charge in my company, handling 120 people's affairs. My son got accident. I was not able to handle it. He's 5 years old in India. 3 days back, he called me. He says, "Papa, I will live with you. This is a humanitarian crisis. We are all trained people working very hard for this country. We can work anywhere. If the situation will not improve, I'll move. No problem. I give 25,000 tax every year. So we are trained people. We are working hard people. Thing is that we need to have to sort out the humanitarian crisis.
Can I ask a question?
It's a human thing.
When you arrived 3 years ago,
Is there a reason why you weren't able to bring your family with you at that point? Was there a block or?
My visa was first I have to come and find a job.
Right.
And then after that, when I came in this country, I found a job, but it was not a 100% match. Then I started finding new job. Then I got a work residence visa. Visa and other thing, this is a separate thing. Residency, no residency is a separate thing. But when the people are away from their family, it's a humanitarian thing. And if this country, I know this country care very much about kids. Kids of migrants are also kids. It's very important.
This is inequality.
Thank you.
Sorry, Erica, can I just one thing? I notice a lot of people, I actually have got a company called Stepping Stones to New Zealand. So I help migrants actually come into the country to get work. So really, I'm now helping people who don't have jobs or are looking to get higher paid jobs, that kind of thing now, because I think that's really where we've got to look. The problem is that you've all got to get a pathway to the residency. It's no good only having the work permit, because the work permit just leads to another work permit, and then where are we going to bring them in? You're going to bring your family in, but ultimately at the end of the day, are you going to get residency? Because if you can't get residency, there's got to be that pathway. You're going to have to go back one day. They're not going to keep you here forever. So it is so difficult. We were talking about letting the children of the South Africans or anybody of 18 to 25. The government paid New Zealanders to go and pick fruit, nearly $5,000 to relocate. Guess what? They didn't stay. They all went back home, and that was so frustrating. Put an 18-year-old in the job to pick fruit, they'll treat it as a holiday, because guess what? We all want to work. We all want to make a living, and we all want to do it for each other. Even our guys that are studying at your level, that's got the PhD, New Zealanders New Zealand don't respect that degree. You're all good to actually come through and study and have the study money, pay the international fees, but go and get a job without that afterwards. That's the difficult part, because we're not recognized for the abilities that we have, because we don't have this New Zealand experience. Well, trust me, we come from countries of hundreds of thousands of people. Yes, we've got the experience to do the job. So just wanted to put that into it. And thank you for your hard work. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I'm trying to be very short. First, thank you for your enormous effort to help all us and to bring these topics to the parliament. Yeah, and we are under psychological pressure now. We are split families because of kids abroad, and we need a little bit hope. And maybe next week it will be official release of GDP forecast, or not forecast. It's for March 2021 data, and after COVID 1 year ago, it was said that GDP will decline 1%. That's the reason we don't need so many migrants and so on. And actual data will be released 7th of June. It will be increased 0.8%. And from your knowledge and your experience, what do you think? Maybe it's maybe light and the end of a tunnel for us. Maybe something will help for immigration to change a little bit the politics, because it's more positive data will be released than expected before. Maybe it will be some hope for us. Sorry for my accent. Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry. I don't quite understand your question. What do you?
Question: what do you think? More positive economic data, which will be released this week?
Well, the thing about this government is they have a genuine, I think, aversion to migration and immigration. And so they'll use whatever tool it is to try and slant it against immigration. So if the economy's doing well, no doubt they'll say, see, we can do it without migrants. And if the wage rates come out, they'll be able to say, see, look, actually wages are better without. They will use whatever data comes out to fit their narrative. So I guess the answer to that is we'll just have to wait and see what comes out and what they say. But
It's a small gift for Swedish family.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh, I love Moscow.
Hello, Eric. I have one question. I just want to ask, like, as government earlier announced that, like, they only want highly skilled migrants. So what about those who are not very highly skilled? Are they going back home? Or are they going to stay here?
Okay, so the question was,
They've just announced that they only want highly skilled migrants. What about people who are here who aren't highly skilled? And that is the problem, because there's been no detail behind this. It's just been a general direction of travel speech. And I think the reason, frankly, that they gave that speech was because they were on the back foot on split migrant families and the residency queues. They knew that they had a real PR problem in immigration, so they thought, I know, we'll get Stuart Nash to stand up and give this speech and it'll make New Zealanders feel good about, yeah, we're going to have these highly skilled people. But all it did was confuse the hell out of people because no one knew what he was talking about. And B, the whole migrant community, suddenly their anxiety levels went up another notch. What does that mean for me? What does that mean? There's no detail. I had Chris Farfoy in front of my select committee last week for estimates, and I said to him, what does this mean? Does this mean that mid to low skilled people can come in and then they leave again, or we just won't get them? Or what does it mean? And what kind of country do we want to be? Do we want to be a country that brings in low skilled migrants and then tells them to leave again? Is that what you want, Minister? A, he wouldn't answer the question. But B, he also did admit that, no, there is a place for mid to low skilled people in New Zealand. So then I tried to make the point, well, that's not what you said in the speech a couple of weeks ago. So it's this mixed messaging. He doesn't understand the requirements out there in New Zealand for different skill levels in different industries and in different regions. And so that's why you're getting these confused mixed messages. And I think for the most part, it's just them being political. It's a political thing to stand up and go, we want the best of the best, yeah! And for Kiwis to go, yeah, that's what we want. But actually, it's no understanding.
Government needs to be clear on it. Like, if they keep extending the visa for 6 months and one pandemic over, so they throw them out of the country.
Yeah, and this is the anxiety.
So they are using the migrants in very smart way, and everybody knows that.
Yeah.
Yep. On one note, could I just say something?
Can I just request everyone one thing?
Okay.
We are helping the mic and these people are helping. Please do not jump. Let the people speak in the mic. We will give everyone a chance. Okay. Because Arika is here, especially to answer your questions. And
it's a short remark in to that. Okay. You see, you're talking about highly skilled immigrants. Basically, this government doesn't even want them. Because I myself am a lecturer, I've been 20 years here. It's so difficult to get a job for skilled people. They don't value skilled people here anyway. So the thing is, it's very sad that people who are also studying here with PhD don't get it. Something called a tall poppy syndrome, where so basically the government is a trick. What they're trying to do is to encourage people to come here with high skills, and they won't get a job here because they basically face a lot of jealousy. You won't fit in the team, not a good team fit. I've heard the stories, you know. Although we have, I would say qualifications. You know. It's not that I'm on a different planet. So you're not a good team fit. So basically the idea is they want the highly skilled people to come here, do their masters and PhD, and go back. Basically, this government is anti people from overseas. So we have to fight for that. Yes, basically, stop popping the TV. Yeah, that's what I will say. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Hi. Good afternoon from a low-skilled worker. I want to introduce my skills, so you can judge my skills. So, this is my ID card as a carpenter. You can see I work for Housing New Zealand for 3 years.
As a carpenter, did you say?
Yes. Yeah. This is my certificate as a volunteer English language tutor to teaching citizens of this country. This is my license as a welder. I'm a low skilled. This is my poster as a president of a technician club in MIT, Manukau Institute of Technology, Ottawa. I'm helping students to get the job. Sorry, I got too much. So this is my plan to solve the recycle problem of Auckland, because they are always talking about we have a recycle problem, but I want to upscale the things. So from my side, in future, if I got the residency, that piece of paper, who gonna define me? So I want to run a non-profitable company that can contribute to reduce the recycle, not just reduce the recycle, but also upskill the things so we can reuse those things. So sorry I don't have my certificate as a engineer. I'm a full-time mechanical engineer working in Mount Wellington. These are the things apart from my job. So, I mean, what exactly they want from us? I mean, it's when she said we don't need low-skilled migrants. Doesn't matter who got a degree, doesn't matter who got a diploma. They put a label on us. We are low-skilled. What's wrong? I mean, from the day I got that idea, I want to run a non-profit company. I mean, I think I'm not even allowed to think to better for this country because they don't want to accept us as a resident of this country. And the biggest question I want to ask you, what if you are in a power? Most of us raise this question. What type of point system we will see if you are a minister? And there was one more point, sorry. Yeah. So what I decided, because most of us are planning for plan B. I have a plan B. My girlfriend just got a residency in Canada. She's a registered nurse. I'm giving a deadline from my side to the country. I'm going to leave. These are the skills I have. I don't care. I will get a job straight away. I know I have got more than enough friends to give me an offer me a job. Yeah. But if I am leaving, the country is going to lose a welder. Country is going to lose a teacher. A country is going to lose an engineer. And a country is going to lose a registered nurse who is willing to come here and join me. Yeah. A lot of people
and that's, we've got some issues, and we have to absolutely look at how we define skill. And I said this for a long time, because if you take someone who works in aged care, for example, until just recently, it was always seen to be a mid to low skilled job, and yet the work that they do with our parents and our grandparents looking after them, and the empathy that they have to have and the personal skills they have to be able to do that job, because it's not an easy job, isn't taken into account. So all the other things that you're talking about today that you do for the community and the plans that you've got aren't taken into account. So there's certainly I think there needs to be a bit of a thought about what we do about the ENSCO skill code, how we define people as high and low and mid-skilled, and actually move away to what is it that we need, what is your contribution, and how long have you been here and what has been your contribution. And these are some of the things that have been sort of thrown at me from economists and immigration advisors and lawyers, and saying, well, here are some other options. We don't have to keep doing it the same way we've been doing it. And so I'm not going to give you an answer today about what I think where the points should be, because I don't know yet. I'm working on policy that I'm hoping to have out by the end of the year, but taking all of these things into account. Because you've got people who've been living in New Zealand for 15 years, who've paid an enormous amount of tax, have a huge contribution, but find themselves in a place where they've got no pathway to residence. And I can see you're obviously really emotional about it. I can see it's a really tough space to be in. We're not valuing it.
I want to spend every cent I earned from last 5 years. Because of that piece of paper, the system is not allowing me to spend my own money. Why should I spend if they're not going to allow me to be a resident over here? I will take that saving and buy home Canada. Why should I spend my money here?
Exactly, that's
true. I don't hold high hopes for the
immigration reset to take all these nuanced positions into account.
Yeah, I mean the system is pushing make a plan B. I have a plan B. I'm from my side. I'm giving a deadline.
I think there will be a huge exodus of people out of this country.
A lot of people moving, very quickly from here, because they've been here from 6, 7, 8, 10 years, and they don't know what they have to do, because they are trying to meet the existing requirements, and then next morning there is a 180 points. Already we need to get out of Auckland to make 30 points, and where we have to go to make 180 points? I don't know.
Oh, sorry.
Hi, Erika.
Hi.
Thank you. So, just want to raise the issue about, I got two questions.
Yeah.
One is split migrant family because my partner got a general visitor visa pre-COVID.
Yes.
And she was on the way to airport to get the flight to New Zealand, but this border got closed about 15 months ago, and this happened. So, like my story, last year in October, just about 8 months ago, I had an accident, and something pushed really hard in my eye, and glass got shattered, and I ended up having a glass in my eye, and I still can't see from my right hand side.
Right.
And I applied for the exemption too many times, but then didn't approve it. On top of that, I ended up staying a month and a half in the dark room because I applied, I need someone because I'm here by myself. My partner is in India with my parents. So they didn't do anything. On top of that, the second question is I just want to take your insight on that, what you think about it. Brother, talk about the high skills, I still, meet the medium wage requirement. I work at a really good company as well. I got all the MPI certifications, got a forklift license, health and safety, and first aid, all those requirements. I still meet all the requirements.
Yep.
Immigration minister always talk about, he need a highly skilled person. How about the person who are already here, are highly skilled? Do he want to leave those people and bring new people?
Yeah.
I don't know what exactly he means. The person who's
right.
the people who are here are high skilled. They're meeting the all the requirement, earning 27, 28, 30, all the minimum requirement. What exactly he want? And because we are ready to apply for the residency, but there is a queue. We are waiting since pre-COVID. What exactly? And there's nothing he's doing. And I got 2 cases, and as my brother, he's mentioned about, the only option got, it's been a year and a half, I haven't seen my wife. So, because I end up staying a month and a half in the dark room, still doctor don't want me to, he said, it's up to you if you want to work, because back in India, the situation is not good, so I don't want my parents to work there. So I end up staying, out of the room and work for the same company with one eye, earning for me and supporting my partners and my family as well. So the option is to, what I'm thinking from now, just going to wait for another 2-3 months, and if there is no option, then we have to live it. There is no other option. We can't stay apart from our family.
This is
and
exactly
from
the story I'm hearing from so many migrants.
Yeah. Thank you.
And I said this in the House last week. We already have skilled people here. It's all very well to talk about the skilled people we want to come into the country. They're already here. And you are going to leave. And all we will have to do is replace you with someone else. It is just beyond ridiculous. And I think that message has started to get through to him because, as I said earlier, they're shifting those residency applications through a lot more quickly, because I pointed out to him, look how many people are in the EOI queue and look how amazing they are. There are, that I said, 500 teachers. They're just going to pack up and leave if they don't think there's any light at the end of the tunnel. And then we'll be in a really bad situation, have to replace them with new people. And by the way, all those new people are actually going to Australia and Canada because they don't want to come here. So it is just it's a giant problem that we've got. The one message I'm trying to get across to the minister is we have skilled people here. Look after them. Because if you look after the people that are here, you'll get a better reputation overseas, and then we can expect more people to want to come here. But at the moment, you are absolutely right. Skilled people are leaving.
And on top of that, they don't think that general visitor visa, considered as a partnership visa. They say, you don't meet the requirement.
No.
But in our culture, this is not
I know that issue. I can talk to you about it afterwards. Yes.
I'll ask quickly.
Yeah.
I just got 2 questions. First is, I'm a mechanical engineer earning more than median wage.
Yes.
But still I can't get residency because my work is not in the ends go list. I'm a mechanical engineer, not working just as a mechanical engineer. And the second one is the partners, the GVV. My missus got a GVV visa. She got a visa on the same day the border closed.
Yeah.
But she can't
They changed
travel.
the rules.
And the rules and blah, 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 and blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
Just got 2 things. I still earn more than median wage, more than $27, but just can't get residency just because ANSCO shit.
ANSCO is a problem. the ANSCO code was never designed for this. It was designed for something completely different. And there are so many anomalies and problems with it. It needs an overhaul. We need to think about, do we still use it? Do we replace it? Do we fix it? How do we? I know that it's a massive problem, and you are a perfect example of why it's not fit for purpose. In terms of the general visitor visas, they shifted the goalposts. When COVID hit, they just went, and I can see what they've done. You've got to prove your relationship, but you
I
can't.
still got a letter from immigration saying that your relationship is genuine, blah blah blah. But just because you haven't spent 3 months or more than together, she can't travel.
No. So that means you have to leave to go there. And by the way, it won't be 3 months. They'll make it more, and you've got to leave your job. And you, I know. It's something I've brought up before, and I will bring up again with the minister. It's a very difficult situation.
So I'm in the same situation. I'm a mechanical engineer back in India,
Yeah.
but I'm a frontline worker. I work through both lockdowns, like lockdown 1 and lockdown 2. I work for a forensic cleaning company. I clean murders, traumas, and like suicides and all of that. So I clean almost like 75 suicides that have been crossed through this lockdown. So like, what my question is like, Canada has given residency for those frontline workers who work through the lockdown. What did New Zealand do for the frontline workers who have worked through?
Nothing.
And like I clearly say that like I earn more than medium wage, and even I've been separated from my partner. Seeing this blood every day, I go back home and just feel like, why would I commit suicide? Like, because I get hands on all pistols and guns and everything, because I've been into this situation as soon as forensics complete their investigation, and I go there with my staff and I give the health certificate after finishing the cleanups. I did some in East Coast base, like previously last 2 weeks there are 2 suicides that happened in Browns Bay and in Castor Bay. I did those 2 jobs. And customers, they always thank us once we finish that, and because we are helping the families, but there is no one helping our families. Like,
Yeah. And so you're stuck in the ENSCO code problem as well, is it?
Yeah. And like my boss is he's the reason why I married in 2019 and I came back in just 2 weeks, because there is no one to take care of the business here.
Yeah. Okay.
So my boss he's in a situation that he said like he will do whatever it takes to help me to get my wife here or to get a residency, but there is no other option.
Can I firstly say thank you very much. Your job sounds really traumatic, and I'm sorry that you have to see all that and then get treated the way that we treat you. It's not a great situation, and I totally understand how awful that must be for you. There's a number of issues going on. Firstly, we've got a huge issue with culturally arranged marriages, and that's a whole other story we can talk about another time, but I know there's lots of problems there. But you're absolutely right. It's interesting hearing you talk about your employer, because I talk to employers all the time who say, I desperately want my staff to stay, who are migrant staff to stay, and I will do anything. They try and help them through this process to get their partners in, to help them get residence, and they do that because they know they can't replace you.
Yeah, it's like he tried almost getting someone else, because even by the time I went for my marriage, I asked him leave for 6 weeks, which he couldn't get someone to do the job.
Yeah.
So I have to just go back to India, get married, and come back in 2 weeks. That's it.
So,
and when I apply for a visa, they say it's like, you didn't stay with your wife. What can I do?
Yeah. So this is something we need to think really carefully about. If we want to attract skilled people here, if we want to retain skilled people here, we have to understand the value of family. And if we don't understand that, then people will go elsewhere. So we look at these highly skilled people, the people like yourself that we desperately need here. The cost of not having your family with you is that you will leave. So it's something that we need to think much more carefully about in the future, and the parents will come into that as well.
And I have decided to leave this year.
Can you just quickly advise about the family's parents-based visa as well?
No, I'm not. I have to wrap it up because we've only got 10 minutes. I have to leave at 4. There's a couple of people I desperately need to be able to talk to. So there is a little bit of food outside, but I know we'll stick around, so if you wanted to come and speak to me individually, please do. Thank you so much for coming. I know that I can't give you all the answers because I'm not the minister, but I'm here to hear your stories. I'm here to take those back. And continue to push him and use the media and use you if you're going to set up groups and petitions to force him into making changes. We've got to work harder for our split migrant families, and we've got to work much harder on these children who are turning 18. Those are sort of right on my radar at the moment. But there are, as have been brought up today, a lot more issues that we need to keep the fire under this minister on, and I will keep doing that. And there's going to be a number of things up in the media, so keep your eye out over the next few weeks. Thank you very much for having me, and I'll talk to you afterwards.
Thank you.
Very quickly, I'm going to invite our senior-most member of the community who himself came as an immigrant and in fact ended up becoming a very successful entrepreneur and has employed thousands of people here over the years. So, if you could actually give them a memorandum we have prepared on behalf of the community. And this is unprecedented. I can tell you one thing, we will organize a bigger event, bigger public meeting. Kelly, thank you for helping us put this. And, on behalf of the community, yours.
Thank you, Erica, for coming. And I think it's good to see such a turnout. I think the policies we should concentrate on. Some policies are not in our control, which is the overseas border, but they can certainly control what's happening in New Zealand. And I keep mentioning to each of the ministers or anyone I see, I said, look, you got a time at the moment. Your immigration department is not doing anything. Okay, it's not processing people overseas. They should start processing those people who are here, and they're COVID free. So you have to do nothing. Give them residence, because every one of the employer here in New Zealand need to employ these people. Why should anybody go back? We need people here. Yes. We need more of you here. Yes. Yeah. Yeah. So.
I must go back. How many people, the citizens of New Zealand, going to settle down there?
So personally, my message is to them: regularize these people. And then let's worry about what's happening overseas. We will worry about that in the next stage when the border opens. Then we will start talking about all those stories I heard today of hardship, heart-wrenching stories, and wouldn't like to happen to any human beings. You see, they know this country was very humanitarian and had a soul in the policy, which we have lost in the few years.
Yes, true.
Okay? So I said that directly many times, not I'm saying it to you guys, I sent it to the ministers. I said, bring some soul into your policy. Look after these people. They're suffering. They paid huge money and then they get exploited by God knows who. And so we can only, if we can help these people, and that's my message, I think, RK, you should go back to them and say, could you please look what's in here in New Zealand? We will worry about those people overseas later on. Because the biggest excuse is, at the moment, we can't bring people in. It's COVID free. So say to them, well, you got people here. Work on them. Why they're sitting home? Why the students of those people who are 18-year-old, why are they sitting home? They should make a special policy so everybody goes back to work. So easy. So easy to do. So that's my request to you, to pass it on to the minister and say to please concentrate and do your job. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for your patience, everyone. On behalf of the hosting team in particular, I just want to acknowledge all the hard work put in by the New Zealand Punjabi volunteers to start off with. Marshall's been a fantastic trailblazer for us, working through. I want to thank the team at the back, also Radio Spice, the Indonats, also the local constituency, and Kelly, thank you for putting things together for us. I can tell you one thing, this is not the first time we faced this. My great-granddad in 1920, which my granddad would tell me a story, faced even harsher conditions than this, and came the organizations that worked under a confederacy to achieve and change the law in this part of the world, and we have better New Zealand. We will work hard again, and something I want to say to people, do not lose hope. There are a lot of people, New Zealanders, who want all the immigrants to settle. If they are good, they got the skills, we will work with them to achieve that here in New Zealand. I have my word from the team. At the end, there is snacks at the back if you would like, to grab something to eat. Thank you for your patience. Any feedback, our team's going to be at the back. Thank you.